Okay guys, today we are going to look at some common mistakes that I saw on the exit ticket 3.6 that you got back today so that you can do corrections and you can take the retake today and improve your grade. So let's start with number one. I chose this common mistake because most of you are really good at solving for the slope. So we see that this person clearly found their 2 points and labeled this x1, y1, this is x2, and y2, and then so they used it in this formula here, negative 2/3. And so as soon as you see that the slope is negative 2/3, then I can cross off A because that has a slope of positive 2/3. I could also cross off D because that's the reciprocal, it's flipped. This, if someone chose D, which hardly anyone did, they probably did x2 minus x1 over y2 minus y1. And so that's why D is incorrect. Now, honestly though, the first thing I would have liked to see is that I see the highlighted y-axis on a graph, because at this point here, we know that's where it crosses the y-axis, and for that reason, where x is equal to 0, remember then this is the y-intercept B. So knowing that the y-intercept is B, I would automatically cross off B. So I'm not sure if some people got confused and they saw negative 2/3, and so that's the first answer choice they saw and they picked that. But minus 1 here, this equation is saying that, yeah, it has a slope of negative 2/3, but it also has a y-intercept of negative 1. And so that's why B is actually incorrect, because B has a, is showing the linear equation of a line that would pass through here at negative 1. Okay? Because plus negative 1 is the same thing as saying minus 1. So the correct answer here is C. Now in order to get C though, you must have gotten the correct, you should have gotten the correct slope, negative 2/3. Give you a second to write that down while I clear my notations. Oops. Okay. So now let's look at number 2. And so let's take a look at a common mistake here. So what I like that I saw is that, again, you guys have done really well solving for slope by using the formula y2 minus y1. Sorry, this is labeled incorrectly, y'all. This should be x2, and this should be y1. Good, we caught that. Okay. So that'd be y2 minus y1, which this is correct, over x2 minus x1. This is set up correctly. And so they got 45 hundredths, 0.45. At this point, I would stop and look at my answer choices. And there are 2 answer choices I would cross off. And here's why. Our linear equation we know is going to look like y equals mx plus b, where m is slope and b is the y-intercept. If I know that m is 0.45, then I should be able to cross off b, because that says 0.84 times the variable t. Okay, t is like the x here, right, because it's the input. And I would also cross off c, because my slope is what I multiply by the input, whether it be x or t. And then, so then I have to decide, okay, is it going to be d where the y-intercept is 0, because the same thing is saying that the y-intercept is plus 0, or is the y-intercept going to be 750? So, one of the mistakes I saw is that one of the mistakes I saw was that we did solve for the y-intercept correctly, and you could tell that they did that here. Okay, they did get B is equal to 750. And yet we still chose C, and I think it's because we were writing it as if it should be y equals bx plus m. And I'm not sure if it's like the t that confused us because it's not an x value, or a variable is x, but just keep in mind that it should always look like this. So anyways, as soon as you found that the y-intercept is 750, I can cross off D, because the y-intercept is not 0, and the correct answer here should have been A. So what I would write down here is for C is that this looks like y equals bx plus m, which we know should be instead y equals mx plus b. Alright, so I'm going to take a pause here while I clear my annotations so you can catch up. Writing in y is b incorrect, incorrect slope. D is incorrect, incorrect y-intercept. And C is incorrect because they switched the b and the m. The rate of change, or slope, is the one that you should be multiplying by the variable, whether the variable be x or t. Okay, so I'm going to clear my annotations here. And now we're going to move on to number 4. Alright, number 4. Most of you were able to solve for the slope correctly. And because we have decimals, remember when we work with our calculator and we put decimals within a fraction, then our answer will be in decimal form. And so I was surprised to see that some of us chose A, because I need you to remember 25 hundredths is a fraction. Write that down. 25 hundredths is a fraction. It cannot be a whole number. It's a decimal that's less than 1, so there's no way it could be a whole number. It's like saying that a quarter, 25 cents, is the same as $4. So I would actually cross off 4, or A, immediately, because it says the slope is 4. And on that same note, I would cross off -4, because if it can't be a whole number, it can't be the opposite of a whole number either. And that means I have to now solve for the y-intercept, because 0.25 or 2500 is actually equal to 1/4, which makes B or C, or D correct. And one other thing you could do too is that in your calculator, you can test it by doing 1, put a decimal in there, over 4, and you'll see that that is equivalent to 25 hundredths. So now let's solve for the y-intercept. So I'm actually going to clear this out first. Alright, so I'm going to do y1 equals m times x1 plus b. Remember, we add the 1 there to remind us, hey, those are the values I'm going to plug in. So this is going to be 350 equals, and I'm going to use that 25 hundredths, 0.25, times 2 plus b, so that I can solve for b. I'm going to multiply this so I can simplify. So it's going to be 350 equals 50 hundredths plus b. Alright, in order to solve for b, we're going to take away 0.50 on both sides. You can do this mentally, you can do this on your calculator, but you should have gotten that 3 is equal to the y-intercept b. And so for that reason, I'm going to cross off b, because the y-intercept is not 2, it's supposed to be 3. Both of these are correct. D was the correct answer. I'll give you a second to catch up there. Now I'm going to clear my annotations. We got 2 more to go. Okay. Let's look at number 5. All right. So here we have a situation. Adrian is hiking this weekend, and the graph below models a linear relationship between hours and miles hiked. Which of the following best describes the miles Adrian hikes per hour? Now, notice that they're saying miles. Oops. I'm going to highlight this. Miles Adrian hikes per hour. So they're asking for the rate of miles per hour. That's my rate that I'm looking for. And this is just another way, since we learned about rate of change last week, which is another way of, I want to know the change in the y value over the change in the x value. Remember, those are little triangles that stand for delta in mathematics, which means change. So I think that I saw a lot of students, a lot of you try to solve for the slope. And this is actually correct. And because you saw that 1.2, I feel that that's the reason that many of us chose D, because you saw this 1.2. But let's look at D a little more carefully. This is what D is saying. D is saying 1 mile per 1.2 hours. Sorry about that S. Versus what you found, or what some of us found here for slope, which is 1.2 miles per hour. These two ratios are not the same. They're actually inverses or reciprocals of each other. They're not equivalent. So that's no way that D could be correct. So then how do we decide what is the correct answer? I'm going to show you two different ways. Most of us did not pick A, so I'm going to just cross off A. Because if you did find the slope, you'd see this is not the same as 1. Good. Okay. So how do I decide between if it's 5 miles in 6 hours or 6 miles in 5 hours? Well, let's take this formula for slope one more time. And you know what? I'm just going to leave it in fraction form. And so this would be 6 over 5. And now let's add labels to it. Because it's changing y, that's miles. Over change in x, that's hours. So that's why the correct answer is C. Or another way to think about it is change in y and change in x. Well, change in y, I went up 6. Over change in x, I went right 5. Again, 6 miles per 5 hours. If someone chose B, they were looking at the change in x over change in y. Okay? And that is how we plot our points, x, comma, y. However, when we're finding rate of change, remember it's the change in y over the change in x. And we saw this when we did like rise over run. Okay, I'll let you catch up, and then I'm going to clear our annotations, and we have one more question. This was the free response section of our exit ticket, and I included it because this is very similar to what you'll see in your exam next Thursday. So what I hope to see is that when you have a graph, the first thing you want to notice, besides if it's, a positive or negative slope, is where does it cross the y-axis? And so at this point, I would identify that right here at the point 0, 1. So this is my x value where x is 0. And this is my y value. I'll just go ahead and label it x1, y1. But that means that 1 is my y-intercept. So if I'm thinking of my linear equation, which has to look like this, y equals mx plus b, immediately I would say this is going to be plus 1 because it crosses at the 1 y-intercept, or the y-axis. Crosses the y-axis at 0, 1. Excuse me. Some of you have asked, well, if this is -1, then why is it that we write -1? And so I want to remind you, here, let me write it over here. Your integer operations. If I'm adding a -1, that's the same thing as subtracting a +1. And so that's why we've written it like this. When it's a negative, we say -1. Okay? So just to clarify, this is +1 because it's +1. If it would have been -1, I would have written -1 because it's the same thing as saying adding a negative. Alright, let me delete this real quick. Okay, so as I was saying, our y-intercept will be +1. So that's already, this question was worth 2 points. And so if you would have written +1 for your b, I would have already given you 1 point there. We do have to do a little bit of work here for the slope, but most of you were able to label x2, y2, and find your slope. This is correct. -1 minus 1 for y2 minus y1. And then I had 5 on a 0 for x2 minus x1. This is perfect. Okay, so this is how you would find your slope. You could have also left it as -2/5. That would also have given you a point. However, to get both these points, your equation needs to look like this. And what we can tell here, in this answer that I provided for you, there's no x. So let's rewrite all of our equation together now. We're going to say y, because remember we bring down y. Sorry, it's getting a little messy. Equals m, bring down, I'm going to say -2/5. And then x plus 1. So this should have been the correct answer. Y equals -2/5 x plus 1. You could also say -0.4 x plus 1. That totally would have been fine too. Alright. So those are excuse me. I can just imagine you guys hearing me cough over this video now. So those were the most common mistakes I saw. Here's what we're going to do at this point is you're going to work with a partner on looking at your own exit ticket, and are there other corrections you can make with the help of a partner or a math coach. But you're also with a partner, going to take about 10 to 15 minutes on a little bit more practice before you do your scavenger hunt and then eventually your exit ticket. So when you see these graphs, questions 1 and 2, I would hope that the first thing you do is highlight your y-axis to figure out what is that y-intercept. Okay? The x value is going to be 0 because it's a y-intercept. 0. But whenever your y value is here, that's going to be your b value. And so don't forget to write your equation y equals mx plus b. Write plus b immediately because you already identified it. Okay? Then you're going to find slope and make sure that you can pick a point that you can clearly read, like here or here. Alright? So that's number 1. For number 2, same idea. We're going to highlight the y-axis, and I'm sorry it's not that clear. This is your y-axis here, which means that this would be your y-intercept. Remember, x is equal to 0 here. Whatever that is B. B. Make sure you can clearly pick another point in order to find slope. And make sure your equation looks like this when we're plugging in M and B. And last but not least, for a table, clear these annotations. If I label this x1, x2, y1, y2. Remember that when you find M, if you get a decimal that's less than 1, that's a fractional part. It's not going to be equal to a whole number. And so that should make you cross off some answer choices. Right? Okay, so like I said, you'll have, let's say, somewhere between 10 to 15 minutes to do the practice and the rest of the corrections on your own exit ticket. You have the privilege to work with the partner, but if we abuse that privilege, then we'll have to do it independently. And after that time is up, you will have about 25 to 30 minutes to do your scavenger hunt. Remember, you can start at any station, and we do also have a QR code that you can use on your iPad to be able to see if you have the correct sequence, like the correct order of the letters. The last 25 minutes of class will be for your exit ticket. I'm giving you plenty of time because I do need to be able to grade those when we're back on Monday. And that's about it, guys. So please be on your best behavior. Show all of your work. Use your calculator. For those of you who want to do a linear regression, that is an option. You can totally do a linear regression, so I'm going to show you how to do one really quickly. If you want to go ahead and grab your calculator real quick as I set up mine. Excuse me. Alright, so on our calculator we should start on our home screen, which you should see. Excuse me. Which you should see on my screen shortly. Okay, so we're going to start on our home screen. Close. And I want to start a new document. Listen spreadsheets. Up here, all my X values. And as Jocelyn told us a couple weeks ago, or days ago, all you need really is 2 points. So whatever point you want that you have from a graph or from a table, plug it in here. I'm just kind of making up numbers right now. And then remember, we're going to press menu, statistics, stat calculations, linear regressions, and max plus B. So one more time, that is menu, statistics, stat calculations, and max plus B. Or for those of us who use the numbers for, go back. 4, 1, 3. And I want from here, I'm going to click X. Here I want to click, oops, looks like we did not label this. There we go. My bad, y'all. We're supposed to label Y. Okay, so menu 4, 1, 3. So from here we're going to click on our X values. Okay, click on Y values, keep everything else the same. Okay, bam. Right here is our slope, 1.5, and our B minus 0.5. All right, that's it for me. Good luck.